2013 DPS Playoffs Explained. Today we're going to talk about how we came up with the seeding for the 2013 DPS Playoffs. On the right hand side of this chart here, we show there are 12 open playoff slots, and those will be filled up by these teams that you see on the left hand side that are in the final DPS ranking. Final DPS ranking is the position in the final regular season computer ranking after the championship games have been played. So as you can see, Florida State wound up being number one team in the DPS computer ranking, and Alabama wound up second. I also have included some teams that are well outside of the top 25, and you'll see why here in a few minutes. So how do we seed the teams for the playoffs? And how do we fill those open slots on the right here? Well, it starts off with statistical conference strength. And conference strength is determined by the computer, and it's based on the results of out-of-conference matchup. So we start seeding our seeding positions using conference champions. And our number one conference was the SEC, no big surprise there. So the first open slot, the number one seed, goes to Auburn, who was the champion of Southeastern Conference. No surprise there. The only issue is that had Auburn lost that game, it probably would not have qualified for the DPS playoffs. Unlike other computer polls, Auburn is ranked well below. As you can see, they were 13th ranked, well below where other computer polls have them. The second conference in strength was the Pac-12, and their champion was Stanford, number 6 team in the final DPS poll. Slot in as the number 2 seed. The third best conference, was the ACC, Atlantic Coast Conference, and their top team was the number one team in the DPS in the final ranking, Florida State. So they will have the third seed in the DPS playoffs. The Big Ten was the fourth seed, fourth best conference. So the fourth seed goes to the champion of that conference, Michigan State. They're another team that will have to play in on the final weekend in order to make the playoffs, because they were, as you can see, they're only 15th ranked, and they would have been too low had they lost the game to be able to make the playoffs. Those top 4 seeded teams get bye weeks, and they will have a week off this week. So the remaining 8 teams can play against each other, and those 4 teams would have a home game on the second week. So now we move on to the Big 12. So the Big 12 happened to be the 5th best conference. As you can see, the Big 12 did not play a championship game, and therefore they are not eligible for a bye. So Big 12 champion, Baylor, would slot in at the number seed. Now, even had the Big 12 been ranked higher, so they were number one team, say they were the number one conference in the land, they still would have been the 5 seed because they didn't play a championship game. So how about non-top 5 conferences? What about those champions of those non-top 5 conferences? Well, in the DPS, these are those top 5 conferences. You can see the American, Independence, the Mountain West, Conference USA, the Sun Belt, and the Mid-American Conference. Those are in order of how they finished in conference strength. And as you can see from the left-hand side of the screen, none of those conference champions were in the top 15 overall. So non-top 5 conference champions must be within the final top 15 to qualify for the playoffs, and none of them were. Therefore, all of those non-top 5 champions are eliminated. There goes UCF, bye-bye. Bowling Green, Fresno State, Rice, and Louisiana Lafayette, all eliminated from the playoffs because they did not finish in the final DPS top 15. What this does is these conference champions and teams within those conferences still have a chance to make the playoffs, but they have to schedule a strong out-of-conference competition and beat that out-of-conference competition in order to be ranked high enough to make the playoffs in the end. They have a chance, but they have to schedule correctly to take advantage of that chance. So we have a special case, and that's Louisville, number 12 here. Number 12 in the final ranking. As you know, their conference champion, UCF, was ranked 22nd. Non-top 5 conference teams cannot qualify for the playoffs unless their conference champion also qualifies for the playoffs. We already saw UCF go off the board, and therefore Louisville is eliminated by this rule, even though they finished in the top 12, and the DPS computer believes they're a good team, and even better than UCF in the end, despite the fact that they lost to UCF. They did not win their conference, and therefore they cannot qualify for the playoffs. Louisville is eliminated. So that brings us to the remaining seeds, and in this case, this is the only case where the DPS takes into account when a team lost a game. Every other case, unlike other computer rankings, I don't give more credit for winning a game at the beginning of the year or losing it towards the end of the year. You give more, take away more points for losing games late in the year, except in the case of the conference championship game. Because it's a play-in game, if you lose, you're not eliminated, but the road is going to be tougher for you. So, as you can see, there are 3 teams that lost in the conference championship Saturday: Arizona State, Ohio State, and Missouri. Those 3 teams in order would slot in behind the remaining top 12 at-large candidates. So, behind it, Wisconsin would go Arizona State, then Ohio State, and then Missouri. So, as you can see, because they lost on championship Saturday, the road for them is going to be much tougher. So then it's simply a matter of adding the remaining seeds in the order in which they finished, in the order in which they're shown on the left-hand side of the page here. So number 6 seed goes to Alabama, number 7 to South Carolina, number 8 to Oregon, number 9 to Clemson, number 10 to Wisconsin, the 11th seed Arizona State, and the 12th seed Ohio State. So, conference championship weekend was critical to one team, and that team was Missouri. Because they lost, there are no slots left for Missouri or LSU, so those guys eliminated. Bye-bye Missouri, even though you're a good team, good enough to be ranked 9th in the season-ending DPS rankings, you're eliminated. How about you, LSU? You had a good season, enjoy your bowl game, but you're eliminated from the playoffs. So, top 12 DPS playoffs field is set, and it's the teams you see on the right-hand side of the page in seeded order. So here's how it looks in form. As you can see in week 1, which would be this weekend, when everyone's depressed at not having any football to watch, you would have first round games with Clemson playing at Oregon. You would have Ohio State at Baylor. You would have Wisconsin playing at South Carolina. And you would have Arizona State playing at Alabama. The winners of those games, not only do they get a nice little trophy and some cheers from the crowd, but they also get a chance to continue on and play for the real championship. It's a better way. It's the DPS. It's better than the +1 championship, the 4-team championship that we're going to get. And it's the way things should be done in Division I college football. Thank you.